In the book of Revelations, it warns us of a moment in time where you and your family are going to have to make a choice. Where me and my family are going to have to make a choice, because we will not be able to buy, we will not be able to sell unless we take a mark. And as we discuss this mark of the beast briefly today, I want you to understand the slow indoctrination that it has taken to lead us into this moment where a choice has to be made, whether you want to or not. Think of the US Postal Service in the 1600s when someone wanted to get a message across the world. A letter, a message, a postcard could take months to arrive. Even in 1775, when the US postal system was actually established by the Second Continental Congress with Benjamin Franklin as his first postmark master, even then, it would take months to arrive. But fast forward into our day and age, you have the email, where you can get a message across in seconds. You have the text, where you can get a connection in seconds. In fact, think about the phone service. Back in the day, remember when we had c.i.a, Sprint, all these companies that would charge you 10 cents a minute to talk to somebody in another country? Remember that?
I don't know.
About $500 a year.
How much do you spend every year on long distance?
$400 or $500.
Really?
It's horrendous.
How'd you like to get some of that back?
Wait, what?
Are you kidding?
Just get Sprint cents. Now, on top of 10 cents a minute, you'll get cash back every year you're with Sprint.
The more you call, the more you get back.
Give me some money. Give me some money back.
It pays to stay with Sprint.
Of course, you aren't getting anything back unless you call Sprint first.
Call for 10 cents a minute evenings and weekends. Now with cash back.
Every year, American business wastes millions of dollars on international calls by using the wrong long-distance company. Now you don't have to waste that money. Introducing MCI's Proof Positive Worldwide. Save up to 50% off typical international calls around the world. Call by June 30th and get 1 month of free long distance. Call MCI now and put your money back in your business.
That is something of the past, because with apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, and others, Skype, you can now video chat for free as long as you have Wi-Fi with anyone across the globe. As we think about our paycheck, we used to actually get paid an actual check, but that moved towards direct deposit, and nowadays if you don't have a direct deposit, you pretty much don't get paid. Slowly but surely, these things that you view as benefits, these things that we view as something that, it makes our life so much easier, slowly but surely has indoctrinated you into accepting what is to come. A global system of communication, a global system of intelligence, a global system that will be able to track your every single move.
We live in an age of mass surveillance, and big data mixed with the ever-increasing power of artificial intelligence means all of our actions are being recorded and stored like never before. This information is being mined to identify social media trends for targeted advertising, but it's also being used to predict riots, election outcomes, disease epidemics, and that's not to mention the vast networks of surveillance cameras that could be used to track crowds and individuals in real time. This is Embers, a computer forecasting system that sifts through the data that you post on social media every day. It mines platforms you'd expect, like Twitter and Facebook, and it tracks things that you might not expect, like restaurant apps, traffic maps, currency rates, and even food prices.
Data from tweets and social media is useful for predicting both disease outbreaks and events like civil unrest, domestic political crisis, elections, and so on. And you can use these non-traditional data sources like restaurant reservation information, hospital imagery, and so on to predict the flu.
Embers mines big data for trends rather than information on individuals. For example, if Embers detects a mass cancellation of restaurant reservations and then hospital parking lots fill up, the system can predict that there is probably an outbreak of food poisoning or flu. And it's incredibly accurate. Embers correctly predicted hantavirus outbreaks in Argentina and Chile in 2013, and political uprisings in Brazil and Venezuela in 2013 and 2014.
When you look at the gas vehicle, that soon will be a thing of the past. And I'm talking about in 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to see the technologies of electronic vehicles rise in a way that you couldn't even imagine. So as these things start rolling across You already seen something happening in China which is demonic. The mark of the beast infrastructure is already in place, in my humble opinion, in China. A light version of it, so that you can see how it's going to be. Binance founder tweeted this today. Binance founder tweeted this on November 28th. WeChat released the first China national ID on its app. One giant step towards global digital identity. Still centralized, but definitely brings us closer to the decentralized possibilities adoption as well. When people view at blockchain technology and Bitcoin and Ethereum and VeChain and all of these companies, they view these companies and they look into them and they're like, wow, it's so good because they're decentralized, or they're centralized, however you prefer. But what this is nothing more than the infrastructure for what will soon be an antichrist system of surveillance all over the world. Why? Because China just announced, and it's in Chinese, so you have to figure this out yourself whenever you listen to that, but the translation essentially is they have announced that they're moving now towards digitalizing Chinese ID cards. The next step after that, what do you think the next step after that, if they're going to digitalize your ID cards? What do you think it's going to be? The People's Bank of China is already going to move towards digitalizing currency. So they're already moving towards that facet. And now they're moving towards digitalizing your whole identity.
Now, China is set to introduce its own digital currency soon. And experts in an AFP report are predicting that the digital currency will be used to allow the government and the central bank to watch over what people spend their money on. The usual concept of cryptocurrencies allows users to trade under anonymity, but experts say that China's e-cash system, well, it will be tightly regulated. With the aim to replace cash, China's digital currency is likely to be more akin to electronic money, stored perhaps on a physical medium than a cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin, which is, of course, based on an online network. Last month, China's central bank governor, c.i.a, said that the new cryptocurrency may be associated with existing electronic payment systems, such as the popular WeChat and Alipay phone apps. Now, those apps are widespread, and they allow yuan transactions via bank accounts.
So the next step is, the next logical step, a microchip. Something that could track you properly within the system. Initially, it will be a picture of you to make sure that it's you when you swipe into something. But afterward, a chip. And these chips are so modern nowadays, they're so tiny nowadays that the technology is so much more advanced than you've seen in the past.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has given the green light to a new medication that will track whether a patient is following their prescription. Some ethicists, though, say it's a tough pill to swallow. Tashana Reed with more on what is being called a digital pill. Tashana.
Well, Heather, I'm going to go right into explaining exactly how this works. So what this is it's a medication that is embedded with a sensor, and this is something that the patient would take and ingest orally. And so the sensor contains a copper and magnesium and silicon part and generates an electrical signal when it comes into contact with stomach fluid. So as the person takes it, it hits your stomach juices, and that is when within a few minutes a signal will be sent out, and that signal is detected by a patch that is worn above the left rib cage. So that patch then sends the date and time of when that pill was ingested to the patient's cell phone app. And so that's what's very interesting here. This is an app that the patient would download on their phone, and I'll show you an image here because from here the patient can tell the application what their mood is at the time, when they've actually rested, and also they can have this information sent to not only their doctor but people that are part of their medical team or support team, so maybe family members or support workers.
But just as in China, where you cannot essentially buy or sell without the approval of the government, where they have social scores and they track everything via your social score. And if you have a low social score, you can't buy certain things. You can't live in certain places. As they adapt this to vehicles in China and in other countries with carbon credits, VeChain is partnering with a vehicle manufacturer to track everything via the VeChain blockchain. So if you speed too much and you're ruining the environment, guess what will happen to your digital score? As you raise your AC in your vehicle a little bit too much, guess what will happen to your vehicle score because you're not helping the environment? So these infrastructures are made in place and they always sell you the benefit of we can help each other around the world if we surveillance everything. But what it is leading towards is towards you accepting the mark. In Revelation 13 it says, He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, I'm not specifically telling you that the chip is the mark or that this is the mark, but what I'm telling you is that these are the infrastructures to prepare the way towards the mark. And many people will submit to the authority of the Antichrist because he will sell you on the benefits of it. Think of the benefits for the governments that provide food stamps for its people. They're going to sell it to society by saying, now we can track that it's being used for the proper reasons. Because if you try to sell that milk, a carton of eggs from WIC, you wouldn't be able to. Because if you try to sell your food stamps, they'll be able to track that as well. So they'll sell the benefits of why it's important. Think of the children. They'll say, we can track your child. No one can steal your child ever again. We can impact crime rates so much because with the blockchain technology and microchip technology, we'll be able to track your vehicle. No one can steal it because if they steal it, we'll know who stole it. And if they steal it, we'll know where they take it. But that will lead into predicting crime, of course. And they'll use predictive algorithms to predict crime. It's like a horror technology film playing right before our very eyes. And speaking of predictive crime, the people that are programming these AI systems, they're not Christians. They're not disciples of Christ. And they're going to use their biases to make sure that we're fully persecuted. And here comes the choice. Because you see, this is not just in China. In the United States of America, the real ID deadline is October 1st, 2020. So even in America, they're already moving towards the real ID. And if you don't have it by October 1st, 2020, federal agencies including DHS and TSA will give you a very, very, very hard time. You need to have this done by October 1st, 2020, or else you may have an ID, but you don't have the real ID according to the government.
Travelers were put on notice today. You may not be able to board a plane next year unless you first make a stop at the DMV to get what's called a real ID. It's a new level of security in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, and transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve tells us what the real ID is really about.
Starting October 2020 of next year, okay? You have to have the gold star on your ID. That way you be in compliance with the Real ID Act.
At airports across the U.S., TSA officers are breaking the news to flyers.
You have to have the gold star on your...
Many will need a round trip to the DMV before October 2020.
Not necessarily looking forward to the process.
Or they may not be able to fly. They'll need new real IDs, a new secure driver's license that'll be required to access airport checkpoints and to enter federal buildings.
How many of the folks coming through here have IDs that are compliant that you're seeing?
Roughly about 50%. So we still have to make the general public aware to go ahead and go to the DMV now, so that way they won't wait till the last minute.
New signs are up at airports alerting passengers about the need for the new ID, with a star like this one in the upper right corner.
And show them your documents.
We found Mark Harris at the Maryland DMV. To get his new Real ID compliant license requires showing a valid ID, passport or birth certificate, proof of social security number, date of birth, and 2 items that prove state residency.
It was a lot of documents. I was surprised how many you needed of each.
The Real ID Act was passed in the wake of 9/11 after several of the hijackers improperly obtained state-issued IDs.
And now that the Federal Reserve is also moving towards a digital currency with the possible Fed coin that is rumored, what you're seeing in China is a precursor to what you will soon see around the world. And in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if we're still here, and you have cops that are no longer cops but are actually robots with AI, that can outrun you, that can outpace you, that don't get tired with stamina, that'll be ready to enforce whatever the system deems it needs to enforce. And a choice has to be made. I'm not here to scare you, I'm here to tell you the truth. If you want me to Joel Osteen you and tell you about fluffy pancakes, I can do that too. but that's not in my DNA to do so. So the only thing I can tell you is that there's hope. In the myth of all of this technologies that are rising that are meant to persecute you, there's hope. And if you read in Daniel 3, read the whole thing. We have King Nebuchadnezzar, and he wanted to tell Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that they needed to bow before him. And he even says, "Do not you serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up?" So as you can see, even in the Tower of Babel, even in the days of Exodus, even in the days of Daniel, leaders have risen up, Antichrist have risen up against Christ and have told their people to worship them instead of God. And the Antichrist, when he rises up, and whether it be an alien that comes out from the sky and says, "I've come to deliver you from yourselves," or whether it be a man that rises up and says, "I'm going to fix all of this," they will not come in the name of Jesus. They will come in their own name, and people will worship them. But you have to be Shadrach, you have to be Meshach, and you have to be Abednego. Because in verse 16, they responded and said to the king, "Oh, we're not careful to answer thee in this matter." They weren't even flinching. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego rejected the king's offer, and they even said, "If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace." Are you and your family willing to walk through that furnace? Are you and your family willing to make that choice of rejecting the Antichrist system that is to come and serving God no matter what? It's a simple question that has an answer that may take a little bit of time for you to formulate a yes to. For me, it's an easy yes because I already know the end result. The end result is victory. For you are in Jesus Christ. No fire can burn you. This is why in Revelation 3:17 and 18 it says, "Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked." So when you make this choice, you're going to lose earthly treasures. You're going to lose earthly friends. You're going to lose earthly status. But the Bible calls all of that nothing. Poor, blind, and naked. And this is why God says, "Buy of me gold, tried in the fire." Because when you buy of God, when you buy of His richness, when you buy of His beautiful riches, you will be okay. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked into that fire, they weren't burned, they weren't hurt, and most importantly, they weren't alone. The King of Kings was with them himself. Isaiah 43:2, I'll end with this. This is my favorite verse. "When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. And when thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burnt, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee." Let's get ready to walk through that fire, because we got Jesus. And when we have Jesus, we may lose everything on earth, but what we have in Him is everlasting life. May God bless you and your families. I love you very, very much. Thank you for watching the videos as always. Thank you for taking time to pass by, to share these. Take a few seconds to share them. They help a lot in the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you for any ministry support, and God bless you and yours.